At the wedding, when the MC asked us to exchange rings, my husband, Evan Haywood, instead pulled out a split-everything agreement. He wanted me to shoulder half of all expenses after marriage. His parents, sitting in the front row, were the first to clap, praising him for being clear-headed. Then, as if this were the most natural thing in the world, he took out a portable card reader and asked me to pay for half of the wedding rings. So, in front of everyone, I scanned the code and paid. I smiled as I took the agreement from him and signed my name on it. Then I picked up the microphone, looked straight at him, and said, "From today on, everything I give will also be split 50-50 with you." He wanted to settle every bill with me? Fine, I'd make sure he lost everything. The wedding hall was packed with guests, the air buzzing with chatter and clinking glasses. Right in the middle of the ceremony, my husband, Evan, suddenly took out a post-marriage split-everything agreement. Without a hint of embarrassment, he read it out loud in front of everyone. "To ensure the quality of our married life and maintain financial independence, I hereby state that after marriage, all expenses, including utilities, food, entertainment, and social obligations, will be split 50-50 with my wife." His parents, sitting below the stage, immediately took the lead in applauding. "My son is so sensible. Truly a modern young man with principles," his mother exclaimed proudly. With looks of both confusion and discomfort, our friends and relatives all glanced at each other. Meanwhile, my parents' faces had gone dark. They tried to stand up, but I pressed their hands down under the table, silently begging them not to make a scene. I looked up at Evan on the stage. There was a standard, almost corporate smile on his face, as if he were giving a business presentation, not getting married. A moment later, Evan stepped down from the stage and handed the agreement to me. "Sign it, Grace," he said. "This is the beginning of our new life, fair and just." I stared at him, not moving. His mother, Patricia, came over then and shoved a pen into my hand. "What? You don't want to sign?" she said sharply. "Evan is so outstanding. You should be grateful that my son is willing to marry you, and you still want to take advantage of our family?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried just enough for the nearby tables to hear. Countless eyes fell on me, making my skin prickle with discomfort. Evan frowned slightly. "Mom, don't say that. I believe she's not that kind of person," he said. Then he turned to me, softening his voice. "It's just a formality, so my parents can feel at ease. Once we're living together, I won't treat you unfairly." I looked into his eyes. We had been dating for 3 years, and he had always treated me well. Maybe I was overthinking things, so I grabbed the pen and signed my name. Evan immediately broke into a broad smile, and Patricia's expression finally relaxed into satisfaction. The wedding continued as if nothing were wrong. The priest then asked Evan, "Do you, Evan Haywood, take this woman, Grace Barlow, to be your lawful wedded wife, to love her and be faithful to her, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for as long as you both shall live?" Evan gazed at me with what looked like deep affection. "I do," he said. Then he leaned slightly toward me, lowering his voice so only I could hear. "Oh, and the cost of today's wedding banquet, we'll split that as well. The total is $200,000. Your share is $100,000. Don't forget to transfer it to me." My blood ran cold in an instant. Seeing the shock on my face, he added calmly, "As for the cash gifts from guests, we'll keep our own separately. The ones from your friends are yours. The ones from my relatives are mine. That's fair, right?" he asked, tilting his head as if he genuinely expected me to agree. I stood frozen on the spot, unable to utter a single word. After the wedding, life became like a perfectly calibrated calculator. Every morning, Evan would send me a list. Frowny face. Yesterday's electricity, $3.20. Your share is $1.6. Yesterday's water, $2.10. Your share is $1.05. Yesterday's gas, $4.50. Your share is $2.25. Dinner ingredients, $38. Your share is $19. Total, $23.9. Please pay. At the bottom, there was always a payment QR code. And every single day, I was transferring him money. One time, I worked overtime and came home late, so I didn't cook. When I walked into the kitchen, Evan was already sitting at the dining table with the takeout spread out in front of him. I pulled out a chair, sat down, and reached for the chopsticks. He pressed down on my hand. "This takeout costs $35. If you want to eat, transfer me 17.5, Grace," he said calmly. My stomach twisted. "Evan, I'm really tired today," I murmured. "I know. That's why you can choose not to eat and go rest instead," he said, like he was just stating a simple fact, nothing more. I swallowed my frustration, stood up, and went back to the bedroom. That night, I suddenly came down with acute gastroenteritis. I was vomiting and having diarrhea, over and over. Clutching the wall for support, I struggled out of the room. "Evan, take me to the hospital. I feel awful," I gasped. He lifted his head from the computer and glanced at me. "Is it that serious? Do you want to drink some hot water first?" I replied weakly, "It's really bad. It hurts so much I can't stand." Only then did he get up and steady me. "All right, I'll take you," he said at last. On the way to the hospital, I curled up in the passenger seat, the pain making it hard to breathe. He drove while talking, as if this were just another spreadsheet to walk through. I checked. Nighttime emergency registration is $50, twice as much as during the day. When we get the medical bills and test fees later, we'll keep track and split them evenly when we get home. I kept my eyes closed, too weak to answer. At the hospital, the doctor prescribed some medication and told me to go pay and then get in 4 drip. So I headed over to the payment counter and got in line, with Evan standing behind me, scrolling on his phone like this was just another errand. When it was finally my turn, the cashier glanced at the screen and said, "That'll be $780. I took out my phone, ready to pay, when Evan suddenly patted my shoulder. "Wait a second," he said. He leaned past me toward the cashier and asked, very politely, "Hello, can we pay separately?" The cashier froze, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. "Sorry, sir, what?" "I mean, she pays her share, and I pay mine," he explained patiently, as if it were the most reasonable thing in the world. "Aren't you two married?" the cashier asked, bewildered, looking between us. Evan nodded and replied flatly, "Yes, but we're a split-everything couple. She should pay $390, and I'll pay $390. People in line behind us all turned to stare. The cashier frowned, clearly annoyed now. "Sir, we don't have that kind of payment method. It has to be paid in one transaction." Evan's brows knit together, like this was some tragic complication. "Then what should we do?" he said. "This doesn't comply with our agreement." pregnant. All those eyes shifted to me. My face burned. I clenched my teeth and said to the cashier, I'll pay. I'll pay the full amount. After paying, I grabbed the receipt and just wanted to get away from there as fast as possible. Evan followed behind me. Don't be mad. It's not that I'm unwilling to spend money, he said. It's just that rules are rules. We agreed on this from the start. The extra $390 you paid, I'll transfer it back to you. Later, in the infusion room, I sat in the chair as the cold war fluid seeped into my veins, spreading a chill through my whole body. Evan sat beside me and took out his phone again. By the way, the cab fare just now was $28. I'll cover the gas, so you transfer me $14. And I came with you to the hospital and lost 2 hours of work. My hourly rate is $200, so that's $400 for those 2 hours. That's my personal time cost. Shouldn't you be responsible for half of that, too? I jerked my head up to look at him. His expression was perfectly serious, not at all like he was joking. Evan, I asked quietly, do you actually think that's reasonable? In a matter-of-fact tone, he replied, of course it's reasonable. My time is a cost, too. If we're going 50-50, then we need to calculate everything clearly. I didn't respond. I simply turned away and looked out at the night beyond the window. The next day, I received his transfer. Not a cent more, not a cent less. Not long after that, I found out I was pregnant. When I showed the pregnancy test stick to Evan, he just stared at it in silence for a long time. For the first time, a strange expression crossed his face. It wasn't joy. It wasn't a surprise. It was something calculated. Without saying another word, he took out a sheet of paper and a pen and began scribbling numbers, his brow furrowing as if he was doing a budget report instead of reacting to a baby. I looked it up. Grace, he stated plainly. From prenatal checkups to delivery, the full package at a public hospital is about $15,000. For the postpartum care center, the mid-range cost is $30,000 a month. Formula, diapers, and other baby supplies are at least $20,000 in the first year. These are all shared expenses, so we'll have to split them evenly. When he finished, he slid the paper covered in figures over to me. So, all in all, the total is $65,000. Your share is $32,500. My suggestion is that you start saving now. I stared at the paper, and a wave of dizziness washed over me, as if the floor had quietly shifted. Evan, am I having this child all by myself? I asked quietly. You can't put it like that, he replied. You're the one who's pregnant, but fertilization was on me. Half and half. Very fair. Somehow, Patricia had already heard I was pregnant, and she made a special trip over. The moment Evan's mother walked in, she didn't ask how I was feeling. Instead, she grabbed Evan by the arm and dragged him into the bedroom. Through the door, I could just make out her voice. Evan, you shouldn't go soft on your wife. Having children is a woman's duty. Why should our family be the one paying for it? Make her pay. Otherwise, once this child is born, it has nothing to do with us. After a while, Evan came out of the room. He was holding a new agreement, frowny face, split everything agreement for pregnancy and child-rearing expenses. Then, he set it down in front of me. Sign it, he said. It'll prevent disputes later. My hands were shaking. And if I don't sign? I asked, my voice barely steady. Then I suggest you don't keep this child. His voice was ice cold, stripped of any emotion. I'm not going to shoulder a debt that doesn't belong to me, Grace. I looked at him, the man I'd loved for 3 years, and at that moment, he was so unfamiliar that it genuinely frightened me. Evan, do you even have a heart? I whispered. Patricia chimed in from the side, her tone sharp and impatient. Why bother explaining so much to her? She just wants to cling to our family. I'm telling you, if she won't sign, then she can hurry up and get it aborted. The Haywood family doesn't support freeloaders, and we definitely don't raise money-sucking burdens. I was trembling with anger now, my fingers stabbing toward the door. Get out.